Hey everybody, welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossi. With me this week are my fantastic co-hosts, Reed Richards and Sue. No, I'm kidding. Liz Harper and Joe Perez. I'm never going to stop making that Fantastic Four joke. I love this Fantastic Four.
I am more the ever-loving Thing, let's be honest.
Nah, dude, sorry. He's just way grumpier than you.
Rough exterior, soft interior. I'm a nougat bar.
Have a rough exterior. You're just nice. I like you. I never feel like you remind me of the robot from Big Hero 6, like Baymax. I would love to be Baymax.
Baymax is very huggable. That's kind of the main impression of Baymax.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huggability.
But actually, you know what you remind me of? You remind me of Spider-Man's best friend in the movies.
Are you going to call me Genki?
I think that is what I'm saying.
All right, I'm out. I'll see you guys later.
What's wrong with being that guy? I would love to be that guy. Dude, you know what people used to say I was like? Volstagg.
Well, yeah, I could. All right. Well,
you don't say you can see it. So
you know what I think we're like? A podcast. We should continue forward.
Okay, go. Anyways, yeah, lots of stuff happening this week. Some of it not actually happening, but I got confused. So we're just going to go over these various things. The first one is going to be Diablo, because we had not only the big campfire chat last week, we also then had news about Diablo Immortal 2 days ago. On the 20, actually no, 1 day ago, because it was on the 24th that they posted stuff about that as well. So we'll give a brief run through of the various Diablo things. The first one is that the Season 5 PTR for Diablo 4 is currently, as of we're recording this, it's out right now. When you listen to this, either it started today, or if you're listening to it a couple of days down the road, it started on Tuesday, and it will be going for a week. And it's like the previous PTR they did for Season 4. It runs for a week, and that's basically it.
Yeah, it's extremely short. It will be ending on July 2nd.
Yeah, so after Canada Day, but before, America beep, yeah. So I'm sorry, I've actually gotten so used to Canada Day now that I can't really get into the 4th of July anymore. It's weird, because as a kid, we used to blow everything up, but now I'm like, now I live in a civilized country where we don't just explode everything.
I am not looking forward to a sea of ash that I'm going to have to clean up the next day, so we're good.
Yeah. Regardless, this is the first thing I noticed when I was looking at it, and it's really interesting. There's going to be a season quest, but the season quest, which is like, against the Infernal Hordes type thing. You're going forth to fight Infernal Hordes. But that quest will start on both the Eternal Realm and the Seasonal Realm. And in addition to that, it will continue on the Eternal Realm after the season is over. So, I mean, we used to talk about this. We wanted the story quest stuff without having to, start over again at level 1. And they're doing it. I don't know if they're going to do this for every season, or if this is just for this season because it connects to the expansion, but
the thing is, the story quests have been so lightweight and nearly non-existent that I'm not excited about this as a non-seasonal thing. It really feels like it's purely to introduce the new event, which is Infernal Hordes, and it might just be 2 or 3 quests that are like, you want to fight the Infernal Hordes, go get this item, and then go here to open a portal. So I am expecting nothing. And by expecting nothing, I will not be disappointed.
Joe, are you actually taking a nap, or you had said before you would take a nap? So
I told you I was gone. I'm out. Bye.
So you don't have any comments on this one?
I don't actually. Like, I honestly have not really been paying attention to a lot of the Diablo stuff. So I have very little input this week. I've been more looking at the other things, which I will probably gush about or word vomit about later.
All right. Well, we'll let you get to that in a second. But other changes they're making while they're doing this, one of them is that they're just making treasure goblins worth more. They drop more loot. They have more gold. There's more rewarding to hit them. I think this is good because, quite frankly, at low level, like when you're leveling a character at low level and a treasure goblin comes by, it is difficult to kill them. And they feel like in Diablo games, treasure goblins are notorious for running through every mob to get them to aggro on you while you're trying to kill the treasure goblin. But my word, do they do that on Diablo 4? Like, they do that like 5 times harder than they did in Diablo 3. Like, it is seriously annoying to try to kill one of these things, especially at low level. So I'm happy that they're buffing treasure goblins. I don't know much about the Infernal Hordes. Go ahead, Liz. I'm sorry.
I mean, I felt like treasure goblins, they're they feel super rare in Diablo 4. And even when we had that anniversary event that was like all about treasure goblins, there were more treasure goblins and they dropped more loot. I did not see, I think I saw one treasure goblin for the entire duration of the event.
Oh, okay.
And
We had a very different experience on that one then.
I mean, I was very disappointed in the treasure goblin event because my thought about treasure goblins is, I think, matches your thought, Matt, which is always be killing goblins.
Yeah,
if there's a treasure goblin, you chase it and kill it.
I still remember the first time we saw, my wife and I were playing together in Diablo 3, and we saw a treasure goblin for the first time while playing together. And literally, you hear her go, "Gob," and I'm like, "Goblin!" And then, like, so we're running around after it, going, "Goblin, goblin!" Like, seriously, like, just like cats staring out a window at a bird and going, but with goblins. So yeah, I'm totally on board with more goblins, killing goblins. I actually had like a lot of goblins when I was doing like leveling this character. Unfortunately, the goblins kept escaping me, which I really hated because they'd get away and it'd be like, ah. You know, but regardless, yeah. The fact that they're buffing them and making them have more money and stuff is great. I do think they should increase the amount of times they spawn. Like, because they don't spawn enough. Even when I was seeing a lot of them, I didn't feel like they were spawning enough. I will never feel like they're spawning enough, but I think objectively, for the average player, they don't spawn much at all. So yeah, I would like to see more of them. The Infernal Horde event, I mean, I don't think it's going to be bad, but it doesn't really come off as, it feels like a Helltide. Like, well, I don't get, I know there are differences, but I don't get why we needed another event like this.
Well, I do think, I mean, the thing is, for all that, you know, Diablo events often do literally send us to hell. And Diablo 5, yeah, I mean, we were briefly in there during the story, which I think literally no one has played since the game ended. I replayed the story for season 4, and it's so good.
I replay the story every time I do a season because it's like I don't care. I want to see it again.
But you get into the seasonal content cadence, and it's like, okay, I guess hell's over there, and the gates are closed, and we're never going back. It's all fine here, except for, you know, raining blood and all the demons and. Or the demons even getting here if the portal to hell is closed. It's very confusing. But basically, Infernal Hordes, we are heading back to hell in a dungeon where you will be fighting off waves of monsters coming at you. And after each wave, you will be able to pick like a bane. So you pick a different sort of thing that the monsters will have. They'll get more powered up in certain ways, but you'll get more rewards from doing it. And once you pick that bane, you'll get another wave of mobs. Pick another bane. These all stack. Another wave of mobs. Pick another bane. Another wave of mobs. So there's kind of this ongoing crush of mobs, and if you fight them all, you get a reward. It is your choice of reward. You know, there are different loot chests that you can open up, and you kind of pick, do I want the one that gives me gear? Do I want the one that gives me gold? What do I want? So you have some choice on the rewards. And then, if you successfully complete the tier, you can go in and fight the Fell Council. Now, this council is a group of Zakrum priests. In fact, the same ones that had guarded Mephisto. And there are 5 of these priests, but the encounter only has 3 of them. So you'll go in and fight the Fell Council, and when you do, you'll see 3 of them. Each of them have unique abilities, and the 3 that show up are going to be random. So there's some variety in this event. So it's a different kind of endgame activity. I do think that, there are a lot of different things you can do at endgame, but they can still get kind of tedious. I can only do so many nightmare dungeons in a row before I just feel like I'm melting into the floor. But
yeah, like for me, for a long while, it was legions I was loving to do. Legion attacks. This kind of feels to me like the legion attacks and the Helltides came together and both got sucked into the Wailing Nightmare event from D3. The waves, the waves and waves and waves. That feels Wailing Nightmare to me. So I guess I'm like not tremendously overwhelmed by it, but I do like the fact that they've got a new thing. I always like the fact that there's a new thing because it's just nice to have new things.
This is going into the seasonal realm and the eternal realm, much like all of the changes in the current season 4, all of the loot changes, itemization changes, those are in the seasonal realm and in the eternal realm, and they're going to stay. So one thing I wonder, this is 2 seasons in a row where the season theme has been on the live realms, the eternal realms, and the seasonal realms. And it feels to me like season 5 has less reason to play a seasonal character than ever. Because even in season 4, there was that short quest chain about the Iron Wolves. Mm-hmm. But in season 5, we're not even getting something like that, at least not that the Diablo team has announced. So it's like, okay, you can do a battle pass, and I think we're all kind of exhausted of battle passes. You can do the season journey, which can be pretty trying and difficult for a pretty limited set of rewards. And it's like, why do I need to put myself through this? You aren't offering me new gameplay. You aren't offering me exciting rewards. So it feels like we have a seasonal system, and it's increasingly pointless. So I don't know what's going on with the direction here.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I'm happy that I don't necessarily have to roll a brand new character to experience this quest line, but at the same time, it would be nice if there was something worthwhile enough. Like, there's no new mechanic to any of these seasons. Yeah, and I think that's the way Diablo 3 really did that. There was like the cool new hidden mechanics. I mean, there's this hourglass thing that you're going to use in the tiers of the Infernal Compasses type thing. But those Infernal Compasses are going to be there for anybody because they're going to be on the Eternal Realms too. They're not going to be new they're not going to be limited to just the season realm. Like, it'd be like if you did the season realm where you got the vampiric powers, but people on the Eternal Realm got them too. It's like, why am I doing this? I already have like a character that I'll just do it on my level 100. Why do I have to do season? So yeah, I do get your point. I don't disagree that is a little weird.
It feels like this season is going to be a lot more like a Diablo 2 season or an original Diablo 3 season, one of those early seasons where it's like, okay, the season is a ladder and you're going on there, you're going to complete, ladder goals, and you're going to compete with your fellow players, and that's it. That's the season. But Diablo 3 kind of changed our expectations later on, I think season 13 and onward, where it's like we're adding new gameplay mechanics. We're adding changes that make it different to play this version of Diablo than the base game, which I thought those were really compelling and fun. And Diablo 4s have not super impressed me so far. And while these changes to the base game are fantastic, these are big upgrades to the base game. The itemization changes in Season 4 were very much needed, and the game is playing great right now. And I think the Infernal Hordes event is going to be fun too. It's a nice addition, but it feels like we aren't getting a seasonal cycle. And that strikes me as odd, because I feel like Blizzard really wants to encourage seasonal gameplay. So you get in there and you buy your battle pass and you put in that engagement because it's a limited time event that you have to complete. And this does not encourage me to log in and create a new character. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. But a couple other things I want to mention really fast before we move on to something else. You're going to basically see there's a lot more new gear coming. There's 50 plus new uniques, which is pretty cool if you like uniques. But the thing I found really interesting is they're going to let more classes use different weapons. For example, the example they used was a sorcerer who can now equip one-handed swords and maces, which I think is pretty cool. My personal wish, which I put in the thing, is that barbs will get scythes, the big two-handed scythe. I don't see any reason why a barbarian couldn't kill you with that. It's a big stick with a big pointy thing on the end of it. I know how those work. Sure, this one's at a slight angle, but yeah, no, I can totally get that in. And I feel like for other classes, like I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think that druids can use two-handed axes, but I see no reason they shouldn't be able. Like, if you're using a big hammer, you can use a big axe. It's basically the same motion. Sure, it's a different edge to it, but it's still basically the same thing. So yeah, I'm hoping that they go really, really off with that. I don't think we should see barbarians with wands. I think that would be kind of silly. Like, what do I do? Throw it at them? No, never mind. Just give it to me. I'll use it the way it's supposed to. But I do think that that's cool. I do want to see more quality of life changes they've promised. I do wonder about the season, though. And part of me wonders if the season's going to be weird just because it's going to be coming so close to the expansion, to Vessel of Hatred. if Vessel of Hatred, we still don't know if Vessel of Hatred is going to add new levels. We don't know what's going to happen to our characters in Vessel of Hatred. Will there be more Paragon levels? Will there be more levels?
There are going to be more Paragon boards. We know that.
More
And
boards.
I
But
have
are we
not
gonna get more
heard
points?
specifically. I haven't heard specifically, but it sounds like more points, more boards, more points, more choices, which kind of implies more levels, but I could be reading that wrong. They have not specifically said, hey, it's Diablo 4 expansion, you're going to be able to level to 110 or 150 or
they
1
could
whatever,
literally just, one of the things they did was that you could earn Paragon points for like doing things like, achievements and so forth.
Oh,
in the
maybe
base game.
maybe
So maybe
that's
they'll
it.
do that again.
They're adding another, it's going to be adding another act basically.
Yeah.
And so maybe you go in and you can get a handful of extra achievement points by doing zone achievements.
Yeah, and that's how I got like the Paragon points for each zone. You end up getting them as you do the zone. So yeah, I don't know, but I do find it interesting. We'll see what happens. I'm going to jump around a little bit here because the next thing is Diablo Immortal, which isn't tremendously interesting. We've got the WoW Midsummer Fire Festival, which is live up until July 5th, and there's a new dragon riding armor for for your various dragon riding mounts, I guess. What's the bad luck prediction system that they put in here? Because I didn't know about that.
So the interesting thing, of course, for those of you who've been out there farming rare drop mounts, you know what it's like. It means you log on and you log on to your alt and you kill the thing, and you log on to your next alt and you kill the thing, and you log on to your next alt, and you do this every day for the duration of the event, and then you don't get what you were looking for, and then you weep, and then you do it again next year. It's maybe not the most satisfying system for these rare drop things. So now there is a bad luck protection. The first kill of the day on your BattleNet account that's your chance of getting the mount. If you don't get the mount, your kill tomorrow has a higher chance. If you don't get the mount, your kill the next day gets the higher chance. So you're decentivized from spending hours running every alt you possibly can through this. And if you really want the mount, go in and do a kill. And then do it again tomorrow. And then do it again the day after. Because you will eventually get there. And, we can't promise you'll get it this event. But it's it's a different kind of RNG than we're used to. We're used to that completely random 0.1% drop chance. Maybe the game has been here for 20 years. Maybe eventually you'll get it. Now, every kill that you don't get it, you've got a better chance next time. You're probably going to be able to get those things you want.
Well, I mean, the problem I have is that they haven't put in any new transmog stuff in a while. So there's really nothing from the Midsummer Fire Festival I want. I don't care about mounts that much. I have the mounts I like, and when I see a mount that I think is really cool, I'm like, ooh, I want that, but otherwise I don't care. So, but I still think it's a good idea to make it so killing it 8 times in a day isn't going to help you, because I know a lot of people who would like literally run that thing with every character on a server, and then they would go to their next server and run it with some people ran it 50 times in a day. They ran it until they ran out of characters.
Especially with Love is in the Air, the X45 Heartbreaker, everyone wanted that mount, and it was such a rare drop that you would do it on every single alt. You would spend hours and hours and hours every week doing nothing but farming this one thing. It's crazy making.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're running on every character on your account and you have maxed out your character limit, that's a lot of characters to run through this experience.
Yes, it is. So, I mean, this is probably going to make those rare items less rare, which I know some people are frustrated by that. They think, oh, I got this and I'm super special because I got this really rare thing. And now other people have it and I'm less special. But I think it's cool to have things. It's cool for people to get things and enjoy things without having to spend years making themselves insane trying to get them.
I also think we've moved past as like a gaming community of the need of that sort of like distinction, because nothing is really sacred anymore, and nor should it be. It should be more about expression. And I think as a whole, we've sort of moved to that, because back in the olden days, and Matt and I have waxed poetic about this many, many times in the past. Like when you had a legendary, like you had the Hand of Ragnaros, or you had, the Why can't I think of the name of the
Thunder
sword now?
Fury,
Thunder
like the Blade
Fury.
of the
Yeah.
Moonseeker.
If you had those, they were massive deals. And there was a time where like not many people had them because the difficulty level to get them was super high or the drop rate was super low. And that was really prestigious. Now, who cares? Like, yeah, it's cool that you have this like 1 in 100 mount, but just because somebody else gets it doesn't mean that yours is less special.
I'll be up front. I get super excited when I see somebody who has Mim's head. Like I immediately get on
one of our raiders has it. I can't remember who has it in our guild.
Yeah, whenever I see someone with Mim's head, I immediately get on my Mim's head and roll around and like just be like, look, we're Mim's buddies. Because it doesn't bother me at all. I would love to put together a entire raid full of people.
Listen,
with Mim's head.
At the beginning of Dragonflight, I got one of the things I think we talked about it was the lava snail mount, right? Where you got this shell and you had to go get the specific thing and you had to survive long enough to capture it in order to get the mount. I got that, early on, and then I wound up doing that thing where I'm sure people remember the mammoth trains that used to happen in Dalaran back in the day.
Yeah.
We did a snail train all around Valdrakken because it was just I started doing it because I was super excited. And then like 4 other people started doing it, then a lot of people others, and it was just fun. Like people were just having a good time with it. That's how it should be. We should just have fun with this stuff. It's a game after all.
But yeah, so that's happening and that's cool. I think having bad luck protection instead of having people have to run the thing like, with every character they can find, I think that's overall a better decision. But we should probably also mention some stuff that's relatively short, and then we can let Joe go on for a bit about Mythic Plus. Guild transfer services are going to go away on July 22nd, which is, as Liz points out in her note here, it probably is as a clue that the War Within pre-patch will be happening on July 23rd. Because generally speaking, they change that kind of thing when they know that they're going to be having a patch type job. Go ahead, Liz.
And the guild transfer services aren't going to be necessary after the War Within pre-patch because that's going to add cross-realm guilds, so you aren't going to have to take your guild and transfer it to another server. You just have your guild, and now you're playing on a different server. So it's going to be obsolete, so it makes a lot of sense that it would become obsolete, right before they're making the feature that will make it obsolete. So yeah we'd predicted that the pre-patch was going to be here on July 23rd, and that lines up pretty good. So, I think we're a month away from the pre-patch, which seems so fast.
But then again, the actual expansion's in August, so yeah.
Yeah, which also seems really fast.
It does seem very fast. I'm completely with you on this one.
Time keeps passing. No
and
escaping it.
We also know a bit about the Radiant Echoes, which is kind of like the expansion. We think it's the pre-patch event.
Yeah, it is the pre-patch event.
One of the things that it's a little weird to me because it's you go talk to Khadgar, of course, because of course it's Khadgar.
Yeah, it's always Khadgar.
And then he basically sends you off to fight various like repeat mobs. Like it's like, hey, remember this thing? Now it's a ghost version of it because it's congealed memories. And it comes in stages. Like there's finally like a boss after you kill a whole bunch of ads type thing. The one I like is Ragnaros in Searing Gorge, the Lich King in Dragonblight, or Onyxia in Dustwallow Marsh, which is cool. I think it's interesting. I mean, these are not the boss; they're memories of them. It's not too different from what we saw in that Magni summons us to try and calm Azeroth down thing, where like it was having nightmares of the past. So it's interesting. And the events 90 minutes in each zone.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is interesting is this year's the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, and it kind of makes sense. We're going back to these memories of Azeroth and fighting them off again. So I think it fits in. I'm a little surprised that there aren't more of them. That there are only 3 of them. It sounds like we're rotating through, but we'll see. We'll see. This is
memory vignettes. And if it's 6 vignettes, there may be like more that we don't know about yet. Because that's just looking at the final phase here. That's what the language that's used. Hello?
I don't have anything more to say. It's this is right. Kind of our standard kind of event.
Okay, so now here we go. Having wasted a lot of his time, we will now let Joe go. Mythic Plus affixes. They've changed them again. What do you think, Joe?
Oh, you're not wasting my time. I'm just here for the ride. No, yeah, so there's a lot going on here. First, there is some changes to how Fortified and Tyrannical is going to work. And we also have what we now get our first look at, Xal'atath's Bargain, which is a new affix for this next season coming with the expansion. So as far as the changes to Fortified and Tyrannical, they are now going to be start being active in the new structure of Mythic Pluses at +4. And they're going to rotate on an alternating weekly basis, kind of like how we were used to them rotating in live. The big difference is at +10 that they're both active now. Whichever one wasn't active becomes active. And now you have to deal with Tyrannical and Fortified. So everybody is going to be loving this. I am absolutely positive. There's going to be no negative impact whatsoever. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see that, because that's going to be a good spike in difficulty for people that are pushing higher keys. And I know that one of the things I heard as far as feedback and comments from people that were running keys this current season is that, and even ones before that, is like Fortified and Tyrannical really don't feel special, and they just are something you kind of just deal with, and you get to a gearing point where they don't matter anymore. But now having both of them active at the same time, probably going to put a bit of a kink in people's plans. The other thing to note is that the Challenger's Peril is going to be active on all keystones at +7. What Challenger's Peril is when you die, it takes more time off now. You get 15 seconds from gone from the remaining time of the dungeon rather than 5 seconds, making each death 3 times more costly to your entire group. It's going to be interesting, especially at higher difficulty levels when time is going to potentially matter. And we don't know what, I think we have the timers for the next season. I think they were data mined, but we don't know how tight that's actually going to be in practice. So it'll be very interesting to see when that hits live. The most interesting one is going to be the Xal'atath's Bargain affixes, at least in my opinion. So this starts at, I believe, +2. So when you get a key at +2, these are going to be active. These are a risk-reward sort of buff, which I think is interesting because it's a lot more interactive instead of affixes just being negative. And I think this is something I asked for, towards the middle of Dragonflight when we were doing keys, where I was like, let's give us something that gives us potentially some benefit as opposed to just something that gives us a negative. Well, I got my wish. The monkey's paw has curled. So what's going to happen is every minute between 2 and 11, +2 and +11 keys, you're going to get a thundering flashback where Xal'atath will show up and summon 4 waves of 5 Orbs of Ascendance, which only cast Cosmic Ascension. If the casts go off, it will buff other mobs with +20% movement speed and haste per orb that successfully cast. It's kind of like Razageth Sparks. The orbs absorb all damage and feature a magic buff, Unstable Power, which you have to burst it or remove Unstable Power to interrupt it. So the only way to kill them is to stop their cast by interrupting, displacing them, crowd controlling them, or purging them. Now, this is, I think, what a lot of people were asking for, which is give every class something to interact with, because there were some ethereal. And I can't forget the other ghost one, because there was 2 ghost affixes in this Dragonflight seasons, and they were just healer centric. That's all. That was really it. Or maybe if you had an interrupt, you could potentially interact with them. Otherwise, you just couldn't do anything. It was boring for a lot of players, and it meant that groups weren't collectively working together. Here, however, you don't really have a choice. Interrupts are on cooldowns. Even AoE stuns are going to be on cooldowns. You're going to have to layer stuff. You're going to have to work together. Why should you do this? Because if you successfully stop the cast, all players with Cosmic Ascension all players will get a buff for Cosmic Ascension, which will grant 1% haste and movement speed per stack for 20 seconds with a maximum of 20%. That's absolutely amazing. So if you do it right and you coordinate it correctly, you can get yourself a full 20% stack buff for 20 seconds of speed in haste and just go to town. And looks like most of the classes that they're going to be wind up doing this, you're going to care about haste. Healers is going to make your hots tick faster. Your damage over time is going to go a little bit quicker. You're going to have faster cast times, and you're going to be able to haul butt. And that's going to be really important in this type of environment where, again, timing matters, especially if you combine this with the Gambit or the Calamity, where every death is another 15 seconds lost. Getting full stacks of this buff can absolutely make a huge difference on whether or not 1 or 2 deaths will potentially be the end of your timing of that key. So I'm actually really excited because it looks like, at least at first glance, they're actually attempting to make this a more dynamic, more group-involved Mythic Plus season. Whether that is not as successful, we will have to see, but I like what I'm seeing so far on paper. This seems very exciting and gives you the ability to actually have stakes where people other than the healer or the tank have to care about what's going on. And that I am thankful for. I think I did that justice. What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't run a lot of M+, so I'm here for your opinion. You're the one of us, I think, who does this most. So yeah, if you're excited, I am also excited.
Yay!
Okay, one of the things we should probably talk about is there's a new game coming out from Blizzard. Apparently, they're hiring for it. At least we don't know anything really about it. There's nothing in the hiring thing that says this is for this game or this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know that they're hiring somebody. It certainly doesn't seem to be an unnamed survival game, I guess.
It's definitely not the unnamed survival game that was very much canceled.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Maybe it's going to be an unnamed, 4X using the assets from the unnamed survival game. I don't know.
It wouldn't be the first time they've done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how Overwatch got born.
Yep. We don't know concrete information here, but we do know they're looking for a narrative director and a creative director and a world design director. So, I don't know if they're hiring in-house for those. There are some people you guys should consider from your own ranks, or if they're looking for somebody who's currently working on a different franchise. This article that we wrote on our site, I didn't write it, I wasn't there, but the article makes the point that it could very well be StarCraft, related.
There was a note that in the listing that they did mention that the phrase open world appears at least once, which I think is interesting, especially if it is something to do with StarCraft. Liz, you were saying something?
I mean, I have always thought that Microsoft is interested in the StarCraft franchise, and Blizzard let it die off. But it is such a great franchise that you could make so many cool games with. So it seems so lame for Blizzard to have done these layoffs, Microsoft to have done these layoffs, to have killed games, and now it's like, we're hiring. It's like, you just
kept me working here.
Yeah. But I would certainly be interested in a StarCraft game. I think it's a franchise with a lot of potential, and it strikes me as so strange that Blizzard just completely dropped it. Yeah,
I mean, to a degree, I understand why they felt like they were done with what they could do with StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of possible StarCraft. You guys went from at one point having just one Diablo game to, like, I think we have 4 now. There's, Diablo 3, people are still playing it. Diablo 2 Resurrected, Diablo Immortal, and Diablo 4. I mean, that's 4 games, guys. You're currently putting out 4 Diablo games. I feel like you could do at least one StarCraft game. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a RTS. It doesn't have to be real-time strategy. But it is weird that the company that was founded on RTSs doesn't currently have one. That is kind of odd. But, it is. Liz mentioned the layoffs, and one of the things that I've been seeing, first of all, I think it is really weird and kind of bad that they laid off so many people and then they started rehiring. I'm hoping they hire people that they laid off. At the very least, at least look at some of them, because you laid off a lot of people. One of the things I've been seeing, I've been on Reddit a lot lately, which is one of those things where I find myself doing it. I'm like, why am I on Reddit so much lately? But one of the things I saw in 12 posts in the WoW community was people complaining about the customer service. at Blizzard. I'm going to say the customer service at Blizzard has never felt like great to me. I've never felt like, wow, they're so good. But I do feel like they laid off so many people involved, not just in customer service, but in the things that you're upset. Like, for instance, people complain a lot about servers being down. They got rid of like their whole team.
Well, not only did they get rid of a whole bunch of them, the ones that they didn't get rid of, they lost a bunch as far as like people quitting as a result of the layoffs too. Because don't forget, layoffs, those aren't just the numbers. Those are just the numbers that we see that are made to leave. There's always a wave of departures afterwards, many of which we've talked about here. Larger name folks that left that weren't necessarily let go, but left on their own terms.
Yeah. So yeah, it is one of those situations where sometimes corporate restructuring feels very aimless. Like, and I know that for a lot of time it's all about, making a short-term benefit. But yeah, it still is one of those things that really does strike me as, in this case in particular, it feels really odd that you basically, not only did you cancel your previous game in development, but you let a ton of people go that were working on that game that could probably have worked on this game. But I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on that one. I don't think I'm ever going to like layoffs.
No, and
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, and we don't have to like beleaguer the point or anything like that, but it is something to note that we are, I don't want to say we're entering a new era because it's still going to be the same level of corporate BS, but we don't know what the future is going to hold right now. This might be a sign of growth, and that might be a good thing in general, where now maybe we might see that redirection in place. And I think we talked about this when the layoffs happened. Some of the things that were eliminated were positions that seemed to be sort of spinning or projects that seemed to be spinning into nowhere. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's good to relocate resources. Sometimes it's good to look at a project and say, this is not feasible, or this is not the direction we want to go anymore. And maybe like this open position is a sign of maybe they're starting to like figure out what direction they're going to go in, because that's what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting to see what they're going to do now that Microsoft's in charge, or at least at the executive level, holding sort of the purse strings, and see what comes of it. I'm never going to like layoffs, but maybe just maybe we might actually get something worthwhile out of the game stuff. That maybe it's something we've always been looking for. Maybe it won't be as stagnant as it has been. So I don't know. I'm choosing to try to remain hopeful for the future.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's always hope. I mean, we just gotta see. It's a waiting game because we don't know what they're working on. We don't know who's working on it. We do not know which developers or development teams are suffering so they can make this new game. We're just gonna have to find out. And of course, a lot of games, companies will start developing them and cancel them. We may never see a game out of this hiring round.
Absolutely.
So we'll find out at some point.
Like, for instance, the unnamed survival game is exactly that. They hired a bunch of people, spent a lot of time developing it, and then just said, nah. So yeah, it does happen. It happens for a lot of reasons. It happens for money reasons. It happens for resource reasons. It happens for, look, we haven't had any progress in this game in a while, so why don't we pivot to something else? There's lots and lots of different reasons why it can happen. But one thing we should mention really fast is that as of the next beta build for the War Within beta test, we're going to get the changes to Shaman for testing, finally. Shaman's been waiting pretty patiently for the possible changes to Shaman.
Yeah, I'm of a mixed bag with this one. So I'm the one that actually put this in because I got tagged with it by Guildy literally just before we started recording. This is so cryptic because we don't know what those changes are. And there's been a ton of feedback, good and bad. And I'm really curious what they took, because they say they took the feedback and, got to work on stuff that aligns with their design philosophy. I don't know that we know their design philosophy anymore. We used to have an inkling of it, but I don't know what their design philosophy is specifically for the class. I do know that there is a very limited amount of time with this build going out between now and the pre-patch, because we can assume that the pre-patch is coming relatively soonish. I think we've talked about that a little bit, and we've kind of speculated on the date already. These changes tend to come with that pre-patch. And my concern is, if we don't have enough time to test these changes, this happened before, and this put and I can only speak from the Resto Shaman standpoint, it put Resto Shaman so far behind the other classes that we didn't get to catch up until the final patch of the expansion, because all those changes that got rolled out a few weeks in testing and beta before pre-patch and before things went live then got pushed back because you had to triage and work on the game-breaking stuff, and it didn't really matter if the class wasn't really benefited, right? Or whether the class was falling behind, because there's 35 other specs for people to play, so who cares about the one that's falling behind when you literally can't log into the game? And I worry about that, especially now, going back to the topic of layoffs, where there are less people in those positions. So I really hope that these changes are at least meaningful and strong, or at least meaningful in an engaging way that doesn't completely break the class and put it so behind everything else that makes it unplayable at the beginning. Because I'll tell you right now, in the beta, I feel fine. Like, I've healed dungeons, I've done a bunch of the testing stuff when I've had time, and it doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel as strong as maybe some people would like it, but there are some people that think that it's too strong. I don't know where they're getting that, but there are some tweaks that they could possibly do. I'm just really worried about how big the overhaul is. Although I will say they did, at least on the latest build, make it so that you can place Surging Totem where it needs to go as like a projected totem, kind of like Spirit Link Totem, which is fantastic because a healing rain pulses out from it. So you can actually place it and not have to worry about dropping it or running into danger. So at least that's a positive change. But
yep,
we'll see. I'm nervous about this. I will probably, when the next beta build releases next week, and I get to see the notes, come back and listen to me rant. I'm probably going to have a lot of opinions on that, and Matt and Liz will probably have to wrangle me really hard.
One thing that I think is interesting that seems to be, particularly with the recent roadmaps, is a change in Blizzard's development philosophy. We do not get things when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
We get things when they are meant to be released, when they are on the calendar. And if something isn't ready at that point, then it doesn't get released, but the content goes ahead. So, I mean, you get things like, I'll talk from my perspective as a Holy Paladin. In Dragonflight, Holy Paladins didn't get a huge rework like some classes got, but we got a rework a couple of patches in. Maybe the first patch. I don't know. It was a long time ago. That was ages. But they didn't wait on the release of the expansion until they had every class the way they wanted it. They released the expansion, and then they looped back around and finished this stuff as they had time for it. I don't know that this is necessarily a bad thing. It means that they're going ahead and getting out content on a regular pace and not putting the brakes on everything because they want one more thing to be in this release. They're holding off some things until they have time to finish them, but going ahead with the regular release schedule. The concern with things like this, particularly with classes, is that they maybe don't get as much testing or development. And I mean, I'm also concerned about Shaman because Shaman haven't gotten a lot of iteration. I'm concerned about Paladins because I play a Paladin, and if you play a Paladin, you know, or you don't know. But it's interesting, and I think if something is not perfect on launch, doesn't feel good on launch, then there's a high chance that Blizzard has not finished working on it, and it may get completely overhauled and turned upside down next patch. I don't like the unpredictability of it, but I mean, it is what it is. It's Paladin's got a pretty good Holy Paladin's got a really nice refresh mid Dragonflight, and then of course we got some big nerfs after that, and we're just gonna have to see where we land. So, but I think that's also kind of a long time problem with the unpredictable ups and downs of classes, the buffs and nerf cycles. It feels a little more evident recently y'all tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like we're getting a lot of overhauls to classes that are off expansion cycles, and it felt like it used to be more like, okay, it's an expansion cycle, this is when we're going to do our big class changes. And now it feels like, well, we're not going to hold the expansion just until this class is perfect. Well, maybe we'll do that next patch.
I mean, there has certainly always been that to a degree. Like I remember way
Mm-hmm.
back in Wrath of the Lich King, the last expansion, Warriors went from yeah we're okay to the last patch like when they dropped Ruby Sanctum, Warrior DPS doubled. Like it
Mm-hmm.
shot up, and I remember thinking, what
It's
did they do? And what they did was they made Armor Pen even better, and then they got rid of it. And then when they got rid of it, they had to compensate Warriors because most of our DPS was from Armor Pen, and they overcompensated a bit. So the old Blizzard pendulum. But I think in general you're right that they do that more. However, we're moving through here. I wanted to mention the Steam Summer Sale because I had forgotten about it myself. As we're recording this, it's 2 days away. It'll be running until the 11th of July.
You got some time to spend that money.
I've been looking. The problem is that the summer sale is massive, and there are literally
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of games that will be on sale. I don't have anything I was looking at that I thought, ooh, I got to pick this up. There's some stuff on there that I feel like if you missed this game when it had its big moment, you can check it out now for a lot less. Like I think Pal
Mhm.
World's up for sale for like 75% off. So, if you want to find out what Pokemon with guns is like, you can play Pal World, and then you realize
it's
it's
more
not.
like Ark.
Yeah, with guns and Pokemon. It's a strange game. Like I remember there's a part in Pal World where you like literally have a whole bunch of these little pals in your armaments factory, essentially working as like on a assembly line making guns for you.
Mhm.
You can do that if you want to, and it's really odd to me. So yeah, but that's one game you can try out. There's a literal ton of them. There are so many games for the Steam sale, and they're good, decent discounts too. I'm actually kind of hoping that Wrath of the Righteous gets a collected edition sale because they just put out their last patch, and I don't have it. Like it's the last expansion for the game. I don't have it, and I'd really like to get it so I could play the whole thing. I haven't been able to do that in a while. So yeah, there's just a ton of stuff. So if you don't
One
go ahead and go. Liz is going to talk now.
one thing, it's not part of the Steam sale, but on sale right now is all of the Dragon Age games for 90% off. If you have not played any of the Dragon Age games, Origins, $3. Dragon Age 2, $3. Dragon Age Inquisition, $4. You are getting a lot of gameplay value for those very few dollars.
That's $10 for the entirety of Dragon Age.
That is so much video game.
Yep.
So if you haven't played and you're interested in the Veilguard game coming out soon,
October.
then we don't have a date. Not officially.
I thought they said September or October.
I do not
whatever.
think they have pinned it down. Just this year, and we're running out of year, so the time frame is shrinking. But if you haven't played, these are great RPGs, and they're 90% off. That's pretty good.
Yeah, $10 for like all three of them. Yeah, just the first one alone, you can get like 80 hours of gameplay out of. The second one, less than that, but still a solid
shorter.
40 to 60. And especially if you've got both expansions, because
Inquisition is an easy 120, 140.
Oh yeah, Inquisition's
is
right up there.
DLCs.
Yeah.
And if you're a completionist and you want to collect all the little things and do all the side quests, you can spend a good long time in there.
Yep. So I guess now we're going to just try and get at least one or two questions in. So if you've got a question for this podcast, please send it to us at podcast@blizzardwatch.com. That's the email for it. Subject line podcast or Blizzard Watch, so we know it's for this show. If you can throw in a pronunciation guide, that's super helpful. Like if you're sending in like a character name or something, and we don't have any way to know how to pronounce it, it'd be really great if you throw one of those in there. We appreciate that. You can also go to our Discord server, and we've got the patron Q and podcast questions channel for our patrons as a way for them to get a more straight line to us and for us to pay them back for being our patrons and making sure we have a site. But if you can't be a patron, we're cool. We get that. Not everybody can afford to. Believe me, I'd like to be a patron for more things, but I am not in a position, and so we totally get it. You can also go to our straight up Q and podcast questions channel, which just lets anybody in, because we're a bunch of accepting fight types around here. But yeah, we've got a few questions here. I'm going to look for one really fast. So yeah, I'm going to ask this one because I wanted to ask it before and we didn't get to it. So this one's from Tetsemi, who's a friend of the show. And the question is, in WoW, what comes first? Romanceable NPC companions or housing? Go ahead. One of you answer. Come on, guys.
Housing. I'm gonna say housing.
That's the only answer.
I don't think either of them is likely, but housing is more likely.
So you don't think they're going to pull a Star Wars: The Old Republic and give you a little sidekick to feel strongly about?
So
I don't think so. I don't think Warcraft leans into narrative in quite that way.
I would agree. Like, despite the fact that we talk about the story all the time, I agree with Liz. There's a weird separation between you and the NPCs. Story happens. You're there. Sometimes you're the centerpiece, and the NPCs are sort of like the tag-alongs. The vast majority of the time, though, especially with Metzen back in charge, I expect this to be way more the case going into the next set of expansions. The NPCs are going to be the highlight, and you're just kind of along for the ride. That's generally what happens. It doesn't really feel like you're on equal footing with them ever. Like, they're either revering you or you're revering them. So romanceable NPCs at that point seems weird. I would much rather them figure out a way to do player housing before even looking at that. And if they really wanted to do like a romance thing, make a separate dating sim. Make that another game project that you do. Make a Warcraft dating sim. We've asked about it before. It's one of the ones heck, KFC has a dating sim. Wendy's has a dating sim.
The scary part is that the KFC dating sim is actually fun and engaging.
I've played dating sims where I'm a bird. I've played dating sims where I'm a sword. Like there's all sorts.
They shouldn't do their own dating sim. They should get characters and stuff into other dating sims.
They can do that too.
Is it like Dungeon Daddy, the one with the swords? It's called something like that.
I forgot what
Dungeon
it is called.
Whatever.
Dungeon Boyfriend, I think, is what it is. But I have it. I've played it. Put NPCs. Put do a cross promotion.
Ashkandi, man.
Yes.
Ashkandi shows up, and it's like Ashkandi normally, and then Ashkandi is a dateable guy. It's basically like
Boyfriend Dungeon. That's what it's called, by the way.
Boyfriend Dungeon. Okay.
I actually loaded up my Steam.
But yeah, no, to totally tie into those things. All right, that's Tetsemi's. I feel like we've answered it at least a little bit. Here comes one from. Here's how much I like this question that I'm actually going to try and ask it, even though I can't pronounce your name very well. The pronunciation guide here is skiff, pronounced like skip, and then like the hesitation noise. So skiffer. I'm sorry if I did that wrong. I'm trying. Hey all, was wondering your opinion on something. Is Diablo 4, when you go to the Herodric Vault with Donin, there are 3 desks in the first area. They all have different layouts and explanations. Which desk do you think belonged to which Herodrin? So Skipper wants to know that. I'm going to throw it to Joe first.
I don't know. Like, I didn't pay attention to the desks. Maybe that makes me bad. I literally wasn't paying much attention to it, so I don't really have a response.
See, the real problem is I would need to go back and find them, and to go and see them, you need to play the story from start to finish. So that's the real problem. I mean, there are 3 desks, and one of them is organized, one of them is messy, and one of them is somewhere in between. And I don't remember the exact descriptions, and I've Googled for this and not found it.
I mean, I think Donin would be the one that was like super organized, right?
The only one I'm sure of is that Donin would be the organized one. And then there's one that's messy, and there's one that's like eccentric, I think, kind of somewhere in between with like eccentric interests and projects. I cannot decide which would be which.
I mean, maybe that's Lorath. Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. And we don't really know much about Elias, except that when he decides to do something, he goes all in. Yeah,
he's very much into the whole hog aspect of things. Yep.
Yeah, and I was trying to puzzle through this, and the problem is, none of the desks really seem to fit Elias. I don't think he would have like this super neat organized desk, but I don't think he would have the messy desk.
Oh, guys, there's
Tal Rasha, Zoltan Cool.
That we're forgetting that Tyrael was also in the vault. Is that what you're about to say?
Elias was an apprentice.
Yep.
Yeah.
He might not have had his own desk.
I don't think Elias did.
So it might be one of those desks is Tyrael's, and Tyrael's desk is going to be the most orderly. because he's an angel.
What I mean, guess what would he need a desk for though? That doesn't seem very angelic. Like Tyrael doesn't strike
humanoid
me
in terms of he was humanoid at that point. But I don't know. I think if we assume that you can't only assume that Elias had his own desk.
When you're in there with Donan, and he talks about how the three of them work together. It's definitely implied that you've got Donan, Elias, and Lorath working together from the dialogue in the scene.
That's fair. I honestly,
we've got kind of thin gruel story-wise here, but I will say it's at least implied.
Yeah, okay, I accept that. I still think that Elias, I don't think if we're assuming one of the desks is Elias, my argument would be that Elias's desk is not going to be as neat and orderly as Donan's because Elias was more about results.
Yeah.
So he'd basically be putting stuff wherever he thought. Like he's not going to be like just throwing it around like Lorath would, but he'd put stuff wherever he thought it would fit and be easily accessible. Like if you've ever done a research project where you've got like all these different books and you're like putting like, like sticky pad notes in okay, boom, I need a bookmark sticky note. And you're doing that like several times and you put the book over there and you grab another book and you're looking and going, aha, this is the correlation I wanted, sticky note. Like that kind of thing, or you've got them up on your computer screen or what have you. There's, or the thing I do a lot is I pin tabs on my browser. So I've got like all these different tabs and then I have them pinned so I can just go back and forth between them. That kind of thing. I think that's more Elias because when we see Elias is kind of reminds me of like if you took Mulder and made him evil. Like, he's like, it all fits now sort of kind of guy. So yeah, I'd say his would be it'd be like in between like Lorath's utter slovenliness and Donan's, neat and tidy down to the decimal point. I would say that Elias's stuff would be right in the middle.
Yeah, I just don't see Lorath as being slobbish. I mean, except for the fact that he is a complete drunk when we meet him. But you go into... I am reading way too much into these things. You go into his house... Everything there is neatly organized. You have, he has baskets of food and the food is all stacked and organized. He has bookshelves organized. He has, you
a
read
back
some
room
of
covered
his
in
notes.
blood.
Okay, he has a back room covered in blood, which is maybe a little less organized. But he also has like these very clear, detailed notes about vampires or demons he's been tracking in the area.
He's the middle desk. He's the in between.
Yeah, I don't see anyone in here who would be a complete mess. So
we are forgetting also that this place has been abandoned for like 10, 20 years.
And also
it's entirely possible that the messy desk might not just be messy because there's monsters in there when we go in there.
But
so
this is also the place where the original 7 were too, right? Like the original 7 Herodrum picked by Tyrael?
It's a Herodric vault, but I don't know if it is the original one.
I thought it was the original one, and that was part of the whole like mystique about it and why there's so much why it was such a sprawling place, because it is rather big for just 3 people.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that is not mentioned in the game itself. I'm
also
pretty confident of that.
The Lost Archives not too far away from it. That's also Herodric. So if the Herodric vault is connected to the Lost Archives or was originally so connected, that could be one reason why it is there, for lack of a better word.
But it also seems like it would be in a position where the original 7 would maybe want to operate from, because it's pretty well located to go wherever they need to go. So there's a possibility that some of these desks are inherited, right? Like, and that means you're now open yourself up to places that maybe Tal Rasha was, or Zoltan Kuhl, or, why can't I think of her name now? What's her name?
There's a lot of them, man. I can't remember them all.
The one that turned into the Butterfly Witch in Diablo 3. Yeah.
You mean Magda? Yeah.
Or, it could be Decker Kane himself, right? Like, you have all of these people that possibly could have traversed through this space. It is absolutely impossible. It's also theoretically possible that they share desks, that they just kind of sat wherever they needed to go. And so you could have notes strewn about or whatever. So we will likely never know, but that's probably way more insight and reading into it than Skafur was looking for. Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know.
The only thing I would say is that you go into the room, there are exactly 3 desks. Each desk has a description of what the desk is like, and Donan specifically talks about him and Elias and Lorath working in there. So it's strongly implied. I mean, it feels like Blizzard was strongly attempting to make this correlation, except I look at them and I don't see a natural correlation to the characters we have.
You know what's really annoying? You can't go back in there after you've completed the main story.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you can't.
I just wrote up to see if I could get in there, and you can't.
You cannot. I know this. I went looking, and I would have to go through my Diablo 4 screenshots and see if I have them, but I have something like 800 Diablo 4 screenshots from, ye early days when the game released, and I was trying to pluck out any bit of information and story from the game that I could, particularly since you can't go back, but I'm not sure. I don't think I have any screenshots of those desks, which it's unique text. How could I not have taken a screenshot? But there you go. Yeah, you have to play through the majority of the game to get here.
Well, Skiffer, hopefully that answers your question, or at least makes you feel like we tried to answer it. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm just going to do it. Marie asks, what's your favorite new D&D 2024 subclass? I think it's the Wild Heart for Barbarians for me, because it feels like it's a revamp of the Totem Warrior, and I'm super interested in seeing how it works out. You guys?
None. I'm not playing it.
Okay. I didn't play it. I haven't played it yet either, man. I just read the options.
We could spend another hour on this, and we don't have the time, but I am not happy with Wizards of the Coast and how they're treating D&D, and nothing of what they're doing really seems enticing to me.
If you're asking me this question, it's a list of subclasses that is not in this book. And I understand that the original Player's Handbook didn't have a lot of subclasses for most classes. Most classes in the 2024 Player's Handbook will have more subclasses than they did in the original 2014 handbook.
Yeah, but you just kind of wonder why you couldn't take the time to compile all the stuff you've done that would be of use to players. Yeah,
because in some ways, the book does feel like it's pulling things from past books and pulling them together. It's pulling together more races, now species. It's pulling together a lot of the rules changes that were in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything or Xanathar's Guide, and it's putting them all in one place. Kind of a revised, updated version of the game, except it has many fewer subclasses than are available in 5e right now.
I was kind of surprised they didn't put any of the giant ones in. That was weird to me.
I mean, and some from some very recent books that just didn't make the cut. There's quite a few that aren't there. So I miss that crazy variety, and it feels like the subclasses that are here are kind of, there are a lot of core class fantasies, but I love the weird ones. I love the weird ones, like my Drake Warden.
Yeah, Drake Warden's good.
Her little baby dragon, and it did not make the cut. It's not in the Player's Handbook. But I gotta live with it. That's all there is to do. You live and you learn, and you move on.
All right. So again, guys, if you have a question for the show, send it to podcast@blizzardwatch.com, subject line podcast Blizzard Watch, or hit up our Discord where we have both the Q and Patreon questions channel and the patron Q and what is it? Patron Q and Q and podcast questions channel.
Patron Q and podcast questions channel.
Thank you. Now Joe will do his thing, but he'll do it competently.
Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast citing community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance of having your question answered on our podcast or the queue, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you, Liz. And thank you to all of you who've been here with us while we do a podcast. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast, and we'll be back next week.